New York City Mayor and potential 2020 candidate Michael Bloomberg is taking on climate policy. During a speech in New Hampshire Tuesday, Bloomberg questioned some of the statements that fellow Democrats are making about the climate, and he raised doubts about the so-called Green New Deal.
Now, a lot of elected officials have embraced the idea of a Green New Deal, and that's great. It's become fashionable to do so. But I think it's time as a party that we started putting some meat on the bone and laying out exactly how a Green New Deal what it should include. And I believe that that plan should be bold and ambitious and, most importantly, achievable. I'm a little bit tired of listening to things that are pie in the sky that we never are going to pass or never going to afford. I think it's just disingenuous to promote those things. You've got to do something that's practical. We need a transition as quickly as possible to clean energy, and we need to be, that has to be a part of the 2020 party platform for the Democratic Party, period.
Conservative columnist and CBSN political contributor Michael Graham was there for Bloomberg's remarks. He's with us now from Boston. All right, Michael, walk us through Bloomberg's environmental message in New Hampshire, and what were some of his critiques of Democrats' policies?
Well, I think that's the key, is that he was not subtle at all in creating space between himself and the, quote, pie-in-the-sky people. And it was taken for granted by the audience that he meant people like Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senator Kamala Harris, who have announced some support for Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal. And the fact that he was willing to kind of, number one, dismiss their talk, talk about how they've become fashionable. He said throughout his speech that he had been working on this for more than 15 years. And they talked about what, concrete applications, what concrete progress can you make? And I think there's something for people that follow this to keep in mind. And I have to tell you, writing about it for the Boston Herald and New Hampshire Journal, it's hard for me to track it. There is no Green New Deal that you can actually point to. Ocasio-Cortez has one that she and some supporters have put on the web, but it's not legislation. It hasn't been proposed. Michael Bloomberg said he has a Green New Deal. And then he added, very importantly, I'm going to release details later. And apparently those details are not going to be things like calling for the complete decarbonization. In other words, no more oil power, coal power at all by 2030, which, once again, is pretty pie in the sky based on most environmental scientists, et cetera.
Well, so how does this type of speech and taking on the issue of climate change resonate with voters in New Hampshire?
Well, it's interesting because in a lot of states for Democrats, you see a focus on identity politics voting. For example, Kamala Harris has focused a lot of time in my old stomping ground of South Carolina, and my political friends down there say she's getting some of the best talent. Really focused on it. There's some talk she may kind of just not really play in New Hampshire because South Carolina has a majority black vote on the Democratic side. But what New Hampshire does have is a lot of affluent. It's the second wealthiest state in the country by household, suburban-esque, white, college-educated voters, and they really care about climate change. I was at Senator Warren's first appearance in the state since she announced a couple of weeks ago. Her biggest applause line was the Green New Deal climate talk. And so it motivates that group of voters. And so it's no surprise that people are talking about it. Michael Bloomberg has a brand new book all about climate change. Right. It's a talking point for every person on the campaign that I've seen, from Julian Castro to Kristen Gillibrand. So
how does this impact the rest of the 2020 Democratic field, do you think?
Well, having a billionaire, I will say, as someone who used to run campaigns, the world's best candidate is a billionaire.
Yeah.
Because you never have to worry, can I get my ads on TV? The check's always going to clear.
Right.
And I love, so just speaking as a guy who works in the media, I love billionaires. Please spend lots of money. That's good. But what it means for the other candidates is if he decides to get in, and it's interesting, he specifically said he's going to make climate going to work to make it part of the 2020 Democratic platform, quote, whether I run or not. That was the only comment he made about running. But if he does run, it means he can right away start spending money on his message, and he has a very strong leg up on environmental issues because he's embraced them. It also, I think, makes it a challenge for the people who are running. I don't know, maybe you can help me what we use the word moderate for now, because I never thought I would call Michael Bloomberg a moderate, but I don't know. But if you want to call it that not quite as left lane, that I think Joe Biden was going to be in, that I think to a degree Kristen Gillibrand, the senator from New York, might have been in, Buttigieg from Indiana and some others. I think he takes up a lot of space in that lane. He's really socially liberal. But, for example, he had no problem striking back on the millionaire tax issue. That's something that Senator Warren and Senator Harris and others have really embraced. And Senator Warren is loving this. She loves fighting with billionaires. Her Twitter feed today full of attacks on Bloomberg and Howard Schultz, the possible independent candidate.
All right, Michael Graham, thank you.